Hope you feel better.
Yeah, for sure. Tough. Well, anybody need an agenda? Or?
Better today. How are you? Good, sir.
Okay.
So we were just discussing the minutes. Don has agreed to do one more night, and that's it. So, but when they came in, I quickly went to the videotape because there was a bunch of stuff that I thought we really better get clarity on this. And as I was watching, I did notice a few issues. So, letters from Judy Herkmer. A motion, and then it jumps to a motion was made by BP. Who's BP?
Me.
Betsy
Oh,
Preston,
Betsy.
sorry. To exclude pages 5 through 63 to our application, and seconded by Ian. So then,
This record.
it says voting in favor, but we didn't vote on that right away. We talked about it. And then Joanne made an amendment to this motion, which had some verbiage, and which I can't remember, but if we want to see it, we can bring it up. But and it was the amendment that actually had a 4-4 tie, and I voted as the fifth. Voted against the amendment.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the amendment wasn't voted.
Right, so what we're not clear on is Joanne was in favor. Who's DB?
Me.
Don.
Don, okay. Joanne, Don,
you've got-
Priscilla, and
Oh, yeah.
Richard were all in favor.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm
But-
not listed there.
No, because you voted against.
Well, so did you.
I wouldn't have
No,
voted
no,
it, I
yeah.
would have voted against it because I made the
No,
motion.
you voted against the amendment.
Oh, you're talking about the
I'm
amendment.
talking about the amendment.
So if you voted against, Todd, you couldn't
Yeah.
break a tie because that would be voting twice.
No, I didn't vote against. I broke a tie. There were 4-4, and then I voted. Because I,
But-
right?
Well, it says that
There's a
you're,
main motion
I
to
know, but
strike
that's why
this
we
part
have
out of the thing, then there's a secondary motion by Joanne, that was defeated with the tiebreaker.
Right.
And then back to the original motion
Right.
which passed.
Right. The original
But-
motion passed. But I
So I think.
the original
just
motion
clarify-
passed unanimously, according to this.
Right, the main
So
motion.
the pages 5 to 63
Yeah.
were excluded,
Yeah.
will be excluded, right? But Joanne's motion to amend with some kind of verbiage is all I could tell. What was the amendment? We could
well,
look
we
at
better,
it.
you're gonna have to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
then.
There's something-
Because
But
it's
the
not
vote
clear.
was 4-4, and then I broke the tie.
Yeah,
I
but
go
Todd,
back
here's
and
my point.
Yeah.
If you're,
No, you take me out. I didn't vote against.
And I'm
You
not
did-
listed there.
I voted
so
against, finally.
I think there's some.
Yeah, you were
confusion.
BP. You voted against the...
But I'm not.
I know he didn't put it
Yeah.
on, but he should put it on.
I'll go back.
It needs to be...
I think, yeah.
Can we have that clarified, rewritten for the next meeting? Or do we have to resolve that
Yeah,
now?
we don't have to pass these now. We can wait and get them
Yeah.
clarified.
Okay, so just look up that Joanne thing.
The amendment around that.
Yeah.
The verbiage, yeah.
Because I was the one that yelled down the table at you, that you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
write down the names of who were for
Right,
and who
that's
was
on the
against.
video.
Right, yeah.
Because right now, this is not a legal vote,
No.
apparently.
Well, it's not the vote even.
Because I think it's.
Okay,
There were
The
two
voting
votes.
to amend, the voting to remove 5 to 63 was a unanimous.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Joanne may have abstained on that one.
She
No,
abstained
she
on
abstained
one
on
of
the
them.
next one. Yeah, yeah. So that was unanimous.
Anyway, we might
Mm-hmm.
review that and just,
Yep,
you could give it back to, we could present them again when you've straightened it out.
okay.
Yeah.
You all right with that?
Yep.
It's that, yeah, and then, a motion was made to remove the arrow, that went all through, members voted to, that was correct, and Joanne abstained on that one. And then you should insert that the motion to submit the application was a unanimous vote in favor.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then there was a
That was a
motion,
confusing meeting, it really was.
yeah, and then there was a motion to enable the Board of Selectmen to go public for
Yeah.
potential sites, that's correct. And then the only other thing is, there were some public comments.
Yeah, I usually don't put those in.
Yeah,
because I think
okay.
if people want them, they can watch it.
All right,
You
so,
know.
but their public comments were
Yeah.
offered, you could just take out the note.
Oh, okay. yeah.
Vern, Lynn, and
Oh, that's-
Judy, Herkimer, and Marina. Marina's here.
If you're gonna say that,
Okay?
no, or about public comments.
Anybody else
Comments.
want?
I should say,
I refer them to the
Video,
video and
yeah.
put them, the websites.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Let's copy the minutes.
yeah, these are the minutes as,
They're gonna be
as they
corrected,
were
though.
emailed. Yeah, they're gonna be corrected.
Not an easy task,
Yeah, okay.
but
So-
you'll get it. It's good.
Look at it, no problem.
doing these. We're gonna refer everything to the video.
So there can be no additions to this agenda. Do we have
It's a special
public?
meeting, you should say.
Yeah, so the
Special
the one communication I thought might be worth discussing is Steve's submission to amend the contract. That came in as an email. Has everybody seen that?
Yeah, very
I
good.
think I may have some copy of that. Board of Selectmen, so. And we did get an email from Joanne, I mean, I think that should be just pointed out. And her request to, or discussion about, which is really not something we want to be doing, but if anybody is gonna discuss that, we can, everybody got that email, so I don't really need to address it right now. So Steve's proposal, which is our first agenda item, he refers to it as a contract amendment, and there is a contract. Do you all know about this contract? I have a cost price summary. That's the closest we have to a
Yes,
contract.
Yes.
Do you people want to see this? This was the first iteration
Thanks.
of what this project was going to cost us. And this was, is there a date on this? Yeah, so this is 7/12/2016. That's good, that's 4 years, almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And this is when this was submitted, $50,569. So this amendment is actually going to be the second amendment, because the first amendment was passed at a town meeting, right?
Last summer, yeah.
Last summer, which I actually have a copy of the call to that, if anybody wants to see it.
Yeah, these, probably put these with the minutes. We should
have
keep a record of this, yeah.
Have all,
You got that? Okay.
So
yeah, all correspondence.
this contract amendment references this cost price summary. And he says, dear board members, WMC Consulting Engineers respectfully request the Selectmen's consideration of this amendment to our original agreement for the performance of the water septic study. We have been asked to provide continued assistance to the board in preparation for a potential town meeting vote. The following tasks are included in this work. Then there are bullet points: attendance at 4 or 5 meetings, tonight's meeting, and then an April meeting, a May meeting, a June meeting, and a town meeting, date to be determined. Assistance in identifying the future site of the MBR treatment plant based on requests for consideration submitted by private landowners. Some of these requests may be identified before the 218 meeting and perhaps can be vetted and discussed at the 218 special meeting. Follow up with USDA to address issues relative to their process to evaluate and make a decision concerning our application. Hopefully report on any activity at the 218 meeting. Provide a consultant at a future meeting that could speak to other potential MBR facilities and other technologies. To date, we have recommended a membrane bioreactor, MBR type of system, but it might be worth investigating other options. Provide a plug-in dollar amount based on different systems that would suffice when the Board of Finance begins to study the effect of the overall project on the town's tax liabilities, short-term and long-term. Develop and provide documentation. Does anybody else need one of these? documentation, and visuals to describe the nature and scope of the project to the general public, and assist in developing a timeline moving forward with the goal to be at a town meeting vote on the project by early or mid-summer 2020. Specific date to be determined. WMC proposes to complete this additional work on an hourly rate and direct cost basis as follows. Engineering assistance, hourly rate not to exceed $6,000. Should you have any questions concerning this proposed amendment to our agreement, please do not hesitate to contact us at your convenience. Sincerely, Steve McDonald for Wendell, McDonald, and Costello. So, anybody want another copy? Need a copy? Right here. Discussion. Anybody got anything specific they want to address or have addressed? Does anybody have concerns as to whether or not we ought to move forward on this?
Well, if this gets us to where we need to go, it seems to me we gotta do it. I don't see, I mean, things happen in the progress of the public engaging with the highly technical engineering thing, you know, and time drags, and, you know, this is just normal, I think.
Priscilla?
Well, the reason the question came here is it came to the Board of Selectmen. And having been on this committee since the beginning, I felt that it needed to come before this committee. I don't dispute it. I'm in favor of it. But I brought it up because I felt that was the better way to proceed.
Okay, okay.
So I just wanted you to understand that.
Yeah, Priscilla references the Board of Selectmen meeting, which I also watched, by the way.
Yeah,
I saw.
You know, I told you all about it, right, to go to the end of the video. Really interesting, you know, that the way you guys handled this, I thought, you know, that you felt, although you could have made a decision, it was important to get a sense of what this committee's attitudes might have been.
And the other thing, Todd,
Yes.
is that Gordon did assure us that there was enough money in the town funds to pay for this.
Right.
I mean, if he had said, no, we're running short, I might have rethought that decision.
Yeah, and that's a little bit related to the fact we got the COG grant, right? That we
Yeah, the town
allocated
meeting
money.
went, you know, when, back in the, whatever it was, when we had a town meeting to start all this in 2017 or whatever, the town voted to do things, and we thought we were going to administer the grant, then it turned out the Council of Governments were going to administer the grants, and the town actually, until this last amendment, hadn't spent any taxpayer money, even though it appropriated $45,000 with the expectation that a lot of that would be reimbursed.
Okay.
So there is money, because I asked Barbara, should we transfer money? So there was no point in transferring money if it's already in that account, if it's a prudent expenditure.
Right, right.
So the 10,000 that was approved at the town meeting, though, that came out
Right.
of town funds?
Correct, yes.
But that's all that's,
That's all that's been spent today, because the rest of it was reimbursed through a grant to
and
the
this
council.
would be also,
This would be taxpayer.
this would be
Yeah,
taxpayer.
there was some money that was raised as a match. There was some donations back in the old days
Mm-hmm.
that, to help match the 5% or something like
But we
that.
wouldn't have to go to town meeting.
No, because there's already money in place, and I will mention this to the Board of Finance when we meet them next time, just to update them, because every month I've been updating the Board of Finance on this committee's project. Right? Even there? Yeah.
So you're saying, let me just understand, the $6,000 is at least in some part money that came through COG from the state?
This is, no, that money, all the money went through
That's gone,
COG.
okay.
Went out to pay the first
Okay.
contract.
This
At the same time, the town appropriated $45,000, which it didn't have to spend in the end
I
to
see.
do that. So that's why that money is, there is money to cover this amount.
Got it.
It's kind of a credit to one of our select people too. Marina's point at that meeting too was I like the way you said that, you know, I've done all my homework on this, and I feel if I didn't bring it to the board, I would be lacking in some way, or, you know, just, I forget how you worded it, but it was really good. I mean,
Yeah.
it made a lot of sense to, and.
Yeah, it's the
not a
nature of
lot
the process, yeah,
Yeah.
to ensure that the institution stays strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a balance between discussion and moving forward, but as we all know, a couple, you know, weeks here and there, more meetings and more input isn't gonna really change the time schedule, and so that's important
Right.
consideration also.
Yeah,
Can I
go ahead,
ask Steve,
please.
just, because you indicated you had gotten some feedback from community, met
Yes,
some
Yes.
concerns. And I sense they're wondering, it was 10,000 then, and it's 6,000 now, and of course, I mean, the more, we get to one point and then we get to another, and each one has its own
yeah.
cost and stuff. So Steve, does this take us to
Town meeting,
town meeting?
correct. Unless it's
Unless
another
we
year
go-
from now and there's 10 meetings instead of 4 meetings.
Right, I mean, the bullets are fairly specific, so
Right.
if there's another bullet shows up in
Right.
here.
Right,
Yeah, the first amendment was, we proposed $10,000 to $12,000. The town chose, of course, the $10,000.
Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. And we bumped up against that, and quite honestly, spent more than that. I never billed you for any of my time working on that amendment, so, but anyway, so we got to the point where we submitted the application. As you know, the application submitted, we received 3 or 4 very minor comments from USDA at this point. So we're ready to go to the next step, which I'll
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, we'll
Our
get,
call to duty was to get the application submitted as part of that 10,000. Did that.
I mean, in fairness, part of that video was Joanne's comments. But seeing that she's not here to elaborate on them, we did hear them, and I think the selectmen heard them, and I think that's why it wasn't approved at that meeting. So you've heard more now, and
And yes, to answer your question, I did get a couple of phone calls
yeah,
from people that watched it. You know, we have a lot of, thanks to Richard's videos,
huge.
at the selectmen's meetings. I almost always get a phone call or two at the end of it, or I'm at the dump and somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you know. But it's a good communication. And when I do the view from my seat, I
Yes,
always
that's
put,
terrific too, by the way.
thank you.
I read
And I
read
put
it.
my phone number at the bottom of that. So I take the responsibility of responding, and I do respond. If you call me with a problem or a question, I'll research it and I'll get back to you.
I don't think there's a award big enough for you to get for the work you've done
No, it's been
with this
wonderful.
video stuff. I really,
By purpose? Wow.
takes my breath
That
away.
for-
It's a whole new age.
That's terrific.
All right, can we
So,
put a vote on the floor?
Well, if you'd like.
Okay, I offer a
Make a motion.
motion to extend the contract with WMC, adding $6,000 to,
Not to exceed 6,000.
not to exceed $6,000 to get us to the town meeting in the summer of 2020.
would it be,
Second?
would it be our recommendation to the selectmen? I mean, it's their
Yeah,
decision,
that would be a
isn't
good
it?
way to put it, yeah. We recommend that the Board of Selectmen, that would be the first part of it.
Okay. I thought he was writing it right. Lisa.
I don't know. I don't think so.
That's all up to you.
Is it? Isn't there a public comment portion? We let you, we have to let everybody.
Is there a second?
A second?
A second?
Betsy?
Okay, now discussion. Any more discussion on this? Any more?
I'm content. I mean, I see the point of it, you know, it's pretty obvious.
Right.
I'd like to say too, I think Steve's done a good job. We've gotten good value out of his things. When we originally talked to DEP, they said it would cost us $150,000
I
just to
heard
get us.
300,000.
All right, you heard 300, I said 150.
Yeah.
So whatever,
Like
we're,
300.
you like the 300.
Yeah, no,
But
that's
anyway, I
what
think
we were being told.
we've gotten good value and, you know, and that's, we're now going beyond what they said that would cover, just to get a study.
Right, right.
So,
The 300 would have included a lot of other things too, but still, I mean, that's the nature of this kind of project. So, anybody want to call the question? Is that what it's called?
Sure, yeah, I'll call the question.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, so we can carry on the agenda. So we're going to discuss the Norman St. Jean email. You called them 4 small items. There's more like 10 on this sheet, but I don't know what are small and what aren't. To you, they're small, perhaps less small to some others. So you want to take the lead on this to start and
I don't
give
have
us?
the email from you, Todd, could I borrow a copy?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
some of them I think were for us.
I got
some
plenty of
I-
copies if anybody else
Yeah,
wants
let me,
them.
I have a copy.
Yeah?
Thanks.
I'll take
Do you
one
have one
too.
of those?
Yeah, I have a pile here. Oh, yes. Thank you.
That's it? Anybody?
Richard rewriting again.
Got it.
Okay, we'll go through this one by one. The proposed site, facility site needs an address. First off, let me explain that Norman's treating this application like it's the full-blown final application. The town's voted in favor of the project and he's ready to rumble. And I explained to Norman on the phone that's not the case. The town's not voted to go ahead with anything at this point, short of funding our services. And so many of these questions, or several of these questions, are related to the fact that he's acting like you should have all this information and it's not there yet.
And he was okay with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for example, facility site, I spoke to him before we even submitted the application. Do we have to identify a specific site? And he told me no. And then he sends me a note here, so I need an address. Like, Norman, you told me I didn't need a specific site. Is that the case? He said, oh, yeah, absolutely. If I have a general area of where you're looking at, that's what I would need. So I can show him, put a circle on the map in downtown, West Cornwall, and that'll be sufficient for that.
Okay.
NPDES permit, well, we don't have a project yet. You don't get a permit number until you have a permit.
Right.
We're nowhere near that stage yet, so
who gives the
that's a
permit?
DEP permit.
So the DEP gives us that
Right.
permit.
Yeah, so what happens is, if the town, here's a scenario, if the town meeting goes ahead and votes for the project, then the town would have the engineering work, design work done. At the same time, a permit would be applied for, NIPDs as we all call it, permit would be applied for. At that point, the DEP would say yay or nay, and would assign a permit number. And at that point, we could give that number, or someone could give that number to the USDA. Notice of intent to file, I believe we sent you a copy of that. Gordon, do you recall that?
Yeah, I think we did publish, is that the thing we're supposed to publish?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe we have published.
So all I need is
Yes,
a copy of the
yeah.
tear sheet or
Okay.
whatever those.
Right,
it's not
whatever appeared in the
certification that
paper.
the notice
Yeah.
got published.
Right.
That's straightforward. EDU worksheet, that's straightforward as well.
I did copy those, just because I'm interested in it, but if anybody else wants a copy of this. But you're going to have to, you've done one of these already, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is part of the,
The thing of it is, it's, again, they're acting like you've got a facility in place, you've got sewers in place, and you're basically going to assess people for the cost of sewer.
Yeah.
He's not realizing this project is up in the air someplace. And so coming up with the equivalent dwelling unit estimate is really wild ass, yes, pardon my French.
so this is an estimate, EDU
Yes, so
estimate.
it'll be an estimate of number of equivalent dwelling units, which we will prepare. We've done this already, so.
Right. Well, that's how you sized
Yes, correct.
what we needed. right?
Yeah. The system description worksheet is very basic. O&M flat $100,000. I already divided it up into different things, and that's prepared to give that back to him. over the next
Now,
few-
we bumped that number up, as
Correct.
I remember, so it's
Yeah.
more like 125, right?
I think it is, and I base my labor cost basically, I think, I'm not gonna take to the bank the numbers we heard from another firm. I
Right.
think that has to go out to bid for if you do that, so I'm not certain that's the right number. I think there's more cost-effective ways of having a plant operated,
Yeah, yeah.
for example. But I've already divided those costs into that, and that would be returned. Short-lived assets, that's, again, that's something where a town or has a wastewater plant and collection system in place, and they have both short and long-term assets. You don't have that. You don't have a system. But I will come up with something to fill in for those plants.
So, let me just ask this question, because the number I heard a lot out and about was 20 years.
Yes.
That doesn't even show up here.
No. Typically, you design the main system for a 20-year lifespan.
Right.
That's more to do with the treatment system itself. The collection system will last for 100 years, type of thing. But short-lived assets are things that you have to replace in 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, or
Okay.
10 to 15 years.
So there are assets within the treatment plant itself that are
correct.
going to wear out.
Yes, correct.
We need numbers
Such
for
as
that.
pumps, valves, membranes, that type of thing.
Now, I would think that Board of Finance would really need that kind of information.
Yeah, well, it's something, well, what typically happens in these things is once a facility gets built and a user fee is established, and we've already talked about the user fee for that, some of that money, or from the town money, would go towards what we call a capital reserve fund. So that money gets set aside every year. There's a reserve fund should unforeseen things or routine maintenance items become needed, and that's how those get paid for.
Okay.
So, town vote, what is the status?
Haven't had the
We're
meeting.
not there yet.
Other credit, this is something for you folks. He needs a letter from 2 banks indicating their rates, terms for this project. It would be even better if the town were denied credit. Gordon and I talked
Yeah.
briefly about that. That's not likely.
Well, Barbara is in contact with several local banks to
Okay.
see what they can do,
Yeah.
so that's underway.
Yeah. Because the purpose of this is to show that the USDA can offer a better deal. so to
Oh, I
speak.
see, okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Get it.
And the town development plan, which indicates the town, that's your plan of conservation and development. I'm sure we get a copy of that from the town, which indicates that this West Cornwall is a target for future
Right.
development sense or, revitalization.
Okay. Well, we have that now, so,
Right.
Yes, we've had it several plans.
yeah.
So to me, there's maybe more for me than I said, 4 items, but they're all pretty basic.
Yeah, okay. I just have one question. So the NIPD's thing, you mentioned that it's a yay or nay situation.
Mhm.
What would nay it? Or what would yay it?
I couldn't honestly tell you because the river, as we've talked about all throughout the study, is acceptable for treated effluent discharge. I mean, if suddenly they came up with, I don't know, a rare and endangered species that would be potentially affected by a discharge, the exact location of the discharge point, I suppose that could throw a monkey wrench in it. I'm not sure it would be a stopper necessarily. The regulations could possibly change. I've not seen that in years, ever, actually, in my career.
Is it a wild
So
river
it'd be a rare circumstance when they
at
would
that
not.
point?
I don't think
Oh,
they're
okay.
going to affect it.
Okay.
It's a
All
federal
right.
designation.
If we propose some kind of technology, if we propose to use a septic tank and treat what we call almost raw waste or primary sewage into the river, then you'd get denied. But you're not gonna do that.
Well, yeah,
So,
might get put in jail too.
Yeah, no, so
For designing
likely
it.
likely of being denied when you propose an adequate, up-to-date, modern system.
Okay, well, anybody have any comments or questions or issues that might relate
Okay,
to?
so this is just sort of a work in progress idea that we're,
Yes.
and getting you more money is gonna get us closer to answering.
Yeah, I've really done all
Yeah.
this stuff already. to be
Yeah.
honest
Yeah.
with you. It's just a matter of me submitting things
Yeah.
to them, so.
Different stages of
Yeah.
completion,
They may
yeah.
come back with different, these are comments from Norman. Norman's not the technical guru for USDA. They have a regional engineer, who's a kind of a friend of ours, Steve Chavez. And he may have some comments, because he will look at the reports and things. His duty is to look at the reports and have comments, he may have some comments. So that's like vetting the project, so to speak, and that's like, as Joanne talks about, another set of eyes on or a peer review. That's what USDA is going to do. They're going to look at the project and say, this makes sense, it does not make sense.
Okay, so, That brings us to the discussion concerning potential site and request for consideration, which Gordon has been receiving. And this addresses item number 1, the proposed facility site. So here we go.
Here we go, the contestants so far. Early results, the Pink House property, the Wish House property, Susan Hellman, not to be left out, the Chair's property at the cottage behind the pottery store, were the 4 people or sites we've heard from so far in the positive.
I'm sorry, who comes after Susan Elman?
The chair.
Todd.
Me.
Todd
Oh, you.
owns
It's okay.
a house,
Right.
a cottage with extra lawn space. So that has been put into the mix.
I thought the Pink House, because those guys bought it, they're putting their own septic in. I mean, they showed us the plans and all that.
Mhm.
And actually, I
That's
asked
for
them,
cottage, that's for the,
I asked them point blank, are you doing the town's septic system here? Is this a plan? And he said, no, absolutely not.
Well,
And that was,
I
I'm not saying,
I've looked at their plans, trying to get try to help them get rolling on the restaurant, and the part of the property around the barn, and quite a bit of the property is consumed by the restaurant, and they are
Yeah.
putting a septic system in to get that going, not knowing how long it's gonna take this all to happen, because we're looking like 3 years,
Right.
2 years, whatever. There is enough residual property behind that, sort of behind the barn, in between the Pink House and the barn, to probably have some consideration done. So,
because this is sort of
But
like.
have
why
they
we-
put their name in the mix, or
Yes.
you're putting their name?
I've heard from them that they said they would be interested for consideration.
Because that's very frustrating for me, because they came down with the plans. They sat in our dining room and showed us the plans, went through everything. And I point blank, and I've asked them twice, and they said no. And they said, well, what about the Pink House? What are you gonna do about the Pink House? Well, we don't know, that's too much money. If that's the case, that's very frustrating for me, because I was lied to, basically. I'm not saying you lied to me, but I think that's a really frustrating thing for me. Plus, we're losing sight. I mean, I know this is not gonna change. The majority of people do not want it in the village. The majority of people, you cannot deny that. That's just
I don't
a
know,
fact.
how can you make that comment?
I can make it because I've spoken to so many people. I've talked to people on Town Street that say that too. You take a straw vote, your straw vote before was, I disagree with that. A lot of people
I
said
know, I
they
take
do
mine,
not
you take
want.
yours. You know, we each have our own individual discussions with individuals.
Right.
Individuals tend to agree
Name
with
somebody-
you
name
when you're
that too.
standing there, so I don't agree with your assessment that the majority of the
If
people
you
don't.
took a vote of the people just in the village, I will bet you $1,000 that they do not
This is
want
irrelevant,
it.
this is irrelevant to our conversation right now.
Well,
It is relevant, because there are people that don't want it down there. I've
Okay.
gotten this impression that it's gonna be there no matter what, but I don't like being lied to. I will not be lied to. And you've done a lot of this, Ian, on your own, and I'm probably getting too off the
Yeah,
subject
we're
now.
getting kind of-
Yeah,
Well,
that's very,
attacked.
I shouldn't be personal. But you're wrong. I can tell you now. I
All
can
I'm
name you
saying,
20
I'm
people.
saying that I canvassed the town, and I got one reaction. And I'm not saying that my reaction was necessarily the reaction.
Right.
You canvassed who you canvassed, and you got a different reaction.
I
It is
canvassed-
totally possible
Yeah.
that both of us are right,
Right.
or both of us are wrong. I totally agree,
Yeah.
so I don't think that my talking with people is a way of
Let me-
assessing what the town wants or
Right.
doesn't.
let me
And maybe I'm
interject.
getting too ahead, but I really do believe that the majority down there don't want it in the village.
Okay.
Well,
All
I
But,
don't think
I
I
mean,
can
I
say
don't
that
know
on
what
behalf
we
of
can
us.
do.
right, so you guys have both really said your
Yeah.
piece, and let
Yeah.
me just interject for a second, because this is a process. It's gonna unfold, and I really appreciate the two of you. This is a very civil debate. about something that's very, very heated and you can get, you know, you could get very worked up about. So I think you've handled it really well. But the timeline on something like this is such that they've received some input as to property owners who are willing to have their property assessed, studied, to be part of this project. We have an engineer who's going to look at all of those properties. 4, maybe there'll be some more before the summer vote comes along. That engineer is also going to indicate what the price of that project is going to be based on which properties are chosen. And at some point, the selectmen, based on whatever wisdom they deem necessary, will decide which one of those projects goes forward.
Right. I think
So-
the thing that made me mad was I feel like I've been lied to now. Not by here, but by people saying,
Right.
no, we have no
But the nature of the
intention."
way the decision will get made
Right.
is such that everybody's input's important, everybody's input will be, you know, thrown in the hopper, and then the democratic process will determine whether or not we can go forward. I mean, if the selectmen say, we see too much difficulty in moving this project forward because of the cost, because we can't put it in the middle of town, so be it. But perhaps they'll get some different kind of feedback. Perhaps they'll have a different attitude about it. So that's the way the thing is going to unfold. It's not going to unfold based on a heated discussion amongst us here at this committee table.
I think you're going to find out too that there's a lot, from my brief experience just trying to get a restaurant going in West Cornwall, just looking at their site plan, there are 5 wells that are impacted by what happens on that piece of property. And that's the biggest piece of property in West Cornwall. So even citing the restaurant in West Cornwall is tough. So there needs to be, this is a job for the engineers to look at the technical aspects to see what are the regulations, where you can even cite these things. Because I know Ian volunteered his property, but probably without some land base, you can't cite one of these systems. So
Which
you,
property, the toll house or
Well,
I mean,
the
in past
workshop
we-
would have made the most sense.
either one?
Now,
Right,
if
in
you
the
put it
past.
behind my workshop, it wouldn't be visually effective. I mean, less people.
So we haven't put
But
that
that's,
maybe on the list at a certain, but I'm just saying that there, 2 things. One, there needs to be technical aspect as far as what will the state allow, what did the health code allow for putting a system in there. The second thing that people should remember by just looking at the map of where the wells are located in West Cornwall, right here, right now, there's 5 wells that are impacted by what happens on the Pink House by itself. It says to me as a layman that I would want a system to deal with this problem if West Cornwall redevelops. If it just keeps going the way it's going, you've got wells that are adjacent to, you have 5 wells adjacent to one property. So there's a tremendous amount of overlap between the wells, the groundwater, the sewage that's there right now. The problems that's there right now is impacting people's wells, or has potential to impact people's wells. Right now, if you look at the map, and I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a technical analysis that I think might be helpful for people to look at as far as what's the situation right now and what's the best way to fix it.
So Torrington Area Health gave the write-off for the restaurant?
They're working on that, but again, there
So
was an easement on the Pink House property that is from your former pottery store,
Right.
and that had to be expanded somewhat in order to then give permission to start a restaurant. So all these properties are all interrelated. So what people thought they could do with their property a couple of months ago is problematic until you do the technical review and get all the information and look at the boundaries and look where the existing situation, where the wells, the septic and all that is. And you have a mishmash of stuff, which makes it very difficult, again, to do anything. So I think that's why we are having engineers
Yeah, I'm
sort
surprised
of look at all these different things.
I'm surprised Torrance Area Health signed off, they haven't signed off yet on a septic system.
Well, I
for
think they
50
have. I
seat
mean, I think
resident.
they're
They
still
have?
working on it, but they've, in general,
And
the
you say-
state, they actually had to go to the state of Connecticut
Yeah.
to sign off on it because it was a restaurant. So
They sounded pretty positive about it when they showed us the plans. I mean, he.
Well, yeah, I know
Sounded
they're,
pretty,
they're
you know.
encouraged
But
to
there's
go forward,
always,
but
there's
an
always steps and
actual
new,
moment when it happens or doesn't happen.
there's a lot of steps between
Yeah.
posing
Yeah.
an idea and then reality sets in when everybody says, here's my thought.
What is the influence of the floodplain issue? You know, primary, secondary, all that stuff,
That's
on
a-
any of these sites?
Question for Steve. probably.
Well,
Yeah, you don't.
I have my opinion, Steve has his opinion.
Oh, you do?
Well,
Yeah.
You
I
really
mean,
can't.
they may
Are
be
there
the same
opinions
Well,
about this?
basically, typically the state regulations go with a 100-year frequency storm event for floodplain, and putting a treatment plant inside of that is verboten unless it's protected. There are treatment systems within 100-year floodplains in Connecticut, but they're protected through either a dike system or whatever else against flooding from a 100-year storm.
Is there a specific line where that 100-year flood?
Oh, yeah,
There's
there's a
line,
plan.
I'm not sure it's
Yeah.
specific, I'm
Map.
not sure, it's sort of a nebulous line. When FEMA does a study, it depends, every reach of every river they study, it's done differently to different levels of accuracy. I don't recall specifically on this situation, did they do a detailed study of West Cornwall and Houstonic River? I'm not sure, but there's a line on a map. But many times those lines on the map are based on an elevation that's been computed, and it doesn't necessarily reflect how the actual ground topography is in the ground. It's drawn on the map and it may not be terribly accurate.
In our
Okay.
case, that water line is on a Lower River Road, because I had built two shops immediately adjacent to that, and I had to not be within a floodplain.
Right.
So I've seen that map a number of times. So you're in the floodplain, but the shops on the other side aren't.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
You said you had a different opinion about it?
No, I said I have an opinion, I didn't know what his opinion was.
Right.
My thought was that a plant should be sited out of the floodplain, so I think we had the same opinion. And roughly, because we did look at trying to get the library going, one of our earlier efforts was to try to get the library going, so we did have some surveying of the floodplain, and they found that the 100-year flood was approximately, again, where Lower River Road was,
Okay.
which again was one of the reasons I did not feel the Bend site was the best, because that frequently goes underwater, and it would seem common sense-wise to keep this infrastructure out of an area that might flood as we have had problems.
So the only remote site you have at the moment is the Hellman site?
Correct.
Except you're up by the railroad tracks, is out of the immediate floodplain. isn't
Right,
it?
I would think anything, I mean, the
And-
sites that
well,
we
Richardson
listed
did.
here
Yes, yeah.
are out of the, I think, out of the floodplain.
Yeah.
The pink house, the
But
witch
when I
house.
say remote, I mean out of the middle of town, like Don is referring to.
So it was the Pink House, Wish House, Susan Hellman's, Todd's, and was there another one?
Todd,
I don't know if I got them all.
That's four, yeah, they were.
Oh,
four,
okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
and Ian, you're suggesting behind your factory, is that an offer or a, no, yes?
Sure.
But didn't I hear you mention it was floodplain, or is that the Toll
No,
House?
it's not floodplain where I
So-
am.
So Toll House is out of the.
Toll House is in,
Yeah,
factory, I call it, his workshop,
yeah.
in my
Workshop.
workshop
Right,
of the floodplain.
yeah, so there's 5.
There's 5. So Ian's factory too.
You're gonna get the same resistance about putting it next to your
Up the back.
factory as
Yes.
The Bend.
the Bend. I'm just telling you, the neighborhood is it's the same.
Well, there is a neighbor, I mean, I got the railroad track on one side and me on the other side, so
His,
those two people don't care, but the other neighbor might want to weigh in on the
so
subject.
tight, that's
To
a
the
tight,
north.
it's a pretty tight site there.
Everything's tight in this corner.
Everything's tight.
Everything's tight.
But that's,
Well, that's the thing.
that's, yeah, pretty tight.
So I feel like you should put pen to paper or pencil to paper and tell us what Hellman's, or find out what Hellman's is gonna be, what the difference is. This 492, would
No.
that do helmets?
It potentially could, I already estimated what the increase for helmets.
Yeah.
And I don't have that in front of me, but it's in reports that you have.
Right.
But I will, I'm
And
gonna
you're-
look at that.
Yeah, I think you should get more clarity on it.
And
Because it's sounding like, we're setting ourselves up for a major Donnybrook.
It's always the NIMBY.
Yeah, I know that. I
That's-
know
It
that.
doesn't matter where it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Someone's not gonna be happy.
I know I was one who has been saying keep it out of town, meaning out of the direct visual of Main Street. I don't have a problem with your house, your building. I think it's
It's
kind of
close
tucked
to
away and it's, I mean, there are some
Yeah.
people that may not be happy with it. I think it presents.
I mean, I think the reality situation too is if the restaurant happens, there's more septic going into West Cornwall, groundwater, neighborhood, whatever you want to call it. There's septic in the neighborhood right now. There's more septic going in, there's more buildings that have to be dealt with somehow. It's sort of going to be a local deal. I mean, it's there in some ways.
Well,
The
yeah.
first thought on that too is, what about when Russ had the restaurant, but that septic had to be pumped all the time? I know, or the guy, that truck comes every couple of weeks, so maybe that's, yeah.
Oh, is that what that was?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So,
Well, yeah, I think the health district tries to make some accommodation for people with under-coded systems, but trying to get some sort of comprehensive, up-to-date system that will really protect the groundwater and really work on the long term is another proposition, but I'm thinking, because I know right now people have looked at properties in West Cornwall and said, we'd like to have a pump system, totally closed system we pump out, and the health district will not allow those to be constructed today.
Really?
When you
Yeah,
said,
that's strictly for a last-ditch effort. Someone's living there, using the business, whatever.
Yeah.
There's no other alternative. But for someone to propose something new or a modification to a building or something like that, that's an absolute vote for the health district.
when you said the wish house, and not the building itself, are you talking, are we back to the meat market, or was that?
It's between the meat market, I think, and the wish
Oh,
house,
oh,
right?
oh.
That's it.
Oh, all right. And the meat market was out for one, because that was.
Well, we've
thought-
never heard from them.
No, Gordon
Right.
talked to her,
Oh.
and she wasn't ready.
Did you find
That'd
it?
be the perfect place for it,
Pardon?
the meat market, the video store.
Yeah.
because
I could try to reach out to
Yeah.
Susan again. Why not?
I thought you did.
Well,
reach-
I may have
You
had
did
a
it.
passing conversation, wasn't anything super, I mean, if I had
Uh-huh.
a conversation, it was a year ago probably.
I can, talk to you about something you said.
For
So,
her, it's
I
a
mean, the more-
monument to Berlin.
My feeling is the more sites that we can get Steve within reason, the better.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So that would,
So,
sounds like you have some work, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And just to be commercial for a moment, the Farnsworth House at 5 Smith Place is for sale. It's on 2 acres. The land is on both sides of Smith Hill. And the asking price currently is $305, down from $375.
Okay, because I do hear from the Farnsworth quite often of trying to, how do they sell their bookstore, or how do they use anything, and they're at a standstill, so I certainly can ask them, because they have a tough situation there without a well or septic in the
Right.
bookstore, so I
Yes, they
think
are.
they might.
Is that a possible site?
I'm not that familiar, but I will look.
This is below Hellman's
Oh.
in there, so.
That big
Okay.
house on the right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we can,
Well, 2 acres sounds attractive, if there's buildings on it now.
Yeah.
yeah, but
There's a-
like half,
There's a 2-car garage and a
Yeah.
detached 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Well, the bookstore is, I mean, it's only the footprint of the building,
Yeah.
but it's a pretty good sized building, you ought to take a look at it and see if it is. I mean, we can't wait for people
Didn't we-
to come to us and offer stuff. We need to be proactive about going out.
Yeah,
I
but it-
agree.
I can let you into either one whenever you want to come. I have the keys.
Didn't we look at the bookstore?
We did briefly, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was
It's tight.
the,
Tight. But, you know, if you're
tight
looking
from
at
a
things-
footprint point of
Yes.
view?
I mean, if you're looking at possibly taking buildings down,
Yeah, no, you'd have to take that building.
then that's a different
No,
issue.
no, yeah, of course you-
Looked at kind
or
of trying to
use it.
maintain some of the structures that were there, using the vacant property, but if that's problematic, and there's other options, it's something to look at.
That was said about the Hellman House, that it would have to be taken down.
Yeah.
too. I mean,
Yes,
it was discussed.
that was decided, yeah, definitely.
So
Okay.
you can start studying the offered options, right?
Mhm,
See if which
absolutely, yeah.
ones work, which ones
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah,
And,
You know where all these places are?
yes. If I've got questions, I'll come see you.
Yeah.
and what else here? Assistance in identifying attendance. You're at this one, 2/8. We can talk a little bit about March. We've decided we're not going to have a March. Should I cancel it now or should I cancel it as we get closer to March?
As you get closer, I think.
Okay.
Well,
But we know it's canceled.
We know it's
so,
canceled.
yeah, okay.
So-
maybe we should cancel it too. 'Cause if it's gonna be canceled, then cancel.
I'm fine with canceling. I just don't know how this works from a
You have to file
technical,
a notice.
bureaucratic. Yeah, I know how to
Because then
do
it doesn't
it.
show up in the
Yeah.
Cornwall Chronicle that it's scheduled, and then people show up and it's not.
Right. The sooner the better, really.
Right. It's not happening.
So I'll send a letter
Right,
to
the
Vera.
schedule to make everybody.
I know you canceled it last
We
week.
don't show.
So, 414, 512, 69, those work for you? Town meeting.
Well,
You're gonna follow up the USDA? This consultant gonna come?
I've
Maybe
got to
fourth-
talk and try to arrange it.
Maybe the April meeting?
That might work.
Okay. Aim for that. The dollar amount,
The system consultant might come to the April meeting.
so there's different systems. That's
What he
something that, to
mentions
me, is a
here.
gray area. So that's why I'm, say,
I'm convinced what we're proposing is the best option.
this is the Xenon.
Well, that's a branding,
Oh.
but MBR is the generic name.
Okay.
Not necessarily Xenon, but the folks that we might bring to April,
About
and
the
there's some other
MBR
technologies that we might consider.
Okay. Okay.
Member,
Their whole
whatever you
business
call
is
it,
building,
yeah.
and running these types of plans. So,
And then I'm particularly interested in this develop and provide documentation and visuals. Once we've kind of got a direction that we're headed,
Yep.
in order to keep the public as informed as possible, something to look at would be fantastic.
Look, that's down the road, we'll have to
Yeah.
talk about what needs to be presented. I mean, there's a lot of sensitivities here in terms of putting an arrow on a map, you know, kind
Right.
of thing, or not putting an arrow on a map. So we have to talk about that.
But,
But in terms of a PowerPoint presentation with costs and other things, that's.
but that might be something that goes beyond the town vote. So what I wouldn't want to hear is you saying we've run out of money to do that. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think we could do, I think you should have some visuals before the town vote as to certain things, certainly.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
What those are, I'm not sure at this point, but we'll talk about that.
Okay, good. And then the timeline moving forward, which would address
Yeah.
how long it's going to take and what it's involved, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Just a question on the other thing, for the sites, is there a timeline for you to get back to us on sites and prices, or are you proposing that, or?
Probably April?
I would anticipate the April meeting.
By the April?
Yeah.
So April will be big. Probably hear something back, could hear something back from USDA.
Oh, probably before that. Well, I think we're gonna get a feeling from USDA fairly soon as to your eligibility and potential percentages of grants.
Right, so they'll actually come up with a number.
Yeah.
So what is our April date?
14, 4/14,
Thank you.
and 5/12, 6/9.
I was going to just get the MBR system.
April 14th.
Okay. So the community interface concerning project, I mean, that was kind of my comment, yeah. Public. Unless there's some more, sorry, any more issues here? Public wanna weigh in at all? Richard, you have it's passed, the issue's passed?
It passed its time.
Okay.
The comment was that the funds that we're discussing,
Uh-huh,
while the discussion of whether it's a grant or taxpayers' money, or where it's been allocated or not, if they're all valid points. One of the things that was only said in passing, is it a valid expense? Are they valid expenses that are being brought up by Steve and WMC? And yes, they are. They are valid expenses, which is really the most important question that is only talked about in passing. So that's the kind of time. Are the expenses valid? It appears that they are. And they're necessary.
Okay.
thank you, treasurer. Your first official act with us as treasurer, that's great. All right, I think we covered it all. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yes, I propose we adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
One of those. Thank you.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, please, take.
That's it, right?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you.